The observation deck smelled like burnt circuits and desperation. Kale pressed her forehead against the cold, reinforced glass, watching the debris field drift past in lazy spirals. Somewhere in that mess of shattered hull, plating, and frozen coolant was what remained of the colony transport meridian. 300 souls, gone in less than a minute. Still no response from the beacon. Director Voss stood behind her, his reflection ghost-like in the viewing port. Nothing. Whatever hit them didn't leave much worth saving. Kale turned away from the window, pulling her jacket tighter. The station's environmental systems hadn't been the same since the power fluctuation started. The salvage teams found something, though. In the debris, Voss raised an eyebrow. Survivors? No. Upport. Not one of ours. The artifact sat in Quarantine Bay 7, humming with energy that made the sensor arrays scream warnings. It looked organic, all curved surfaces and patterns that hurt to look at directly. The science team had set up every scanner they had, and each one told a different story about what sat on that examination table. It's definitely not human technology, Dr. Chen muttered, adjusting her glasses as she studied the readouts. The material composition keeps shifting. 1 minute, it reads as metal. The next, it's showing properties of living tissue. Kale circled the pod slowly. It was roughly the size of a coffin, dark purple with veins of silver light pulsing through its surface. Any idea what's inside? Life signs are inconsistent. Sometimes we get nothing, sometimes it spikes like there's a dozen organisms in there. The scans can't penetrate the outer shell. Chun tapped her tablet, frowning at the data. Whatever it is, it survived the explosion that took out the Meridian. That hull was rated for direct meteor strikes. So this thing is tougher than a colony transport. Voss crossed his arms. Wonderful. Any theories on origin? The trajectory puts it coming from beyond the rim. Deep space, probably outside map territory. Chun pulled up a star chart. We found trace elements embedded in the outer layer. Elements that don't exist in our periodic table. The pod's humming changed pitch, dropping to a resonance that Kale felt in her chest. The silver veins pulsed faster, creating patterns that seemed almost deliberate. The overhead lights flickered in response. It's reacting to something. Kale stepped closer despite her instincts screaming otherwise. Chin, what changed? Your proximity. It's responding to you specifically. The doctor's voice carried a mix of excitement and concern. The electromagnetic signature spiked the moment you approached. Before anyone could stop her, Kale reached out. Her fingers brushed the surface and the world inverted. She stood in darkness, so complete it had texture. Then stars bloomed around her, not the familiar constellations she'd memorized during academy training, but strange geometries of light that formed shapes she couldn't name. A voice spoke, not in words but in pure meaning that bypassed her ears entirely. Witness. Remember. Choose. Images flooded her mind. Vast ships that moved through space like living things. Civilizations rising and falling in the span of heartbeats. War on a scale that made human conflicts look like children arguing over toys. And at the center of it all, a choice that had been made countless times before by countless species before humanity ever looked up at the stars. Kale gasped and pulled back, her hand leaving the pod surface. She was back in the quarantine bay, but only seconds had passed. Chun and Voss stared at her with concern. What happened? Voss demanded. Your readings went haywire. Show me something. Kale's voice was steady despite the chaos in her thoughts. A war. No, the war. Something so old our entire species didn't exist when it started. The pod's surface rippled like water, and a seam appeared along its center. Steam hissed out as internal pressure equalized with the bay's atmosphere. The science team scrambled backward as the upper half began to lift. Inside lay a figure that looked almost human. Almost. The proportions were wrong in subtle ways, the skin too pale, the features too perfect to be natural. But it was the eyes that made Kale's breath catch. They opened and focused on her with an intelligence that predated solar systems. Ambassador Kale Reeves. The being's lips moved, but the voice came from everywhere at once. We have been searching for your species for 3,000 cycles. The War Council convenes in 7 of your solar rotations. Humanity must send a representative. Representative for what? Kale found her voice. The being sat up slowly, as if remembering how bodies worked. To decide whether your kind joins the alliance, remains neutral, or stand with the enemy. There is no fourth option. The war comes to your galaxy whether you wish it or not. And if we refuse to choose, then the choice is made for you, and your species ends before it truly begins. The being's expression held no malice, only certainty. We have seen it happen 17 times before. We would prefer a different outcome. The lights in the bay stabilized as the pod's energy signature normalized. Outside the quarantine glass, Kale could see station personnel gathering, drawn by the commotion. Among them were military advisors, corporate representatives, government officials. Everyone who would want a voice in this decision. Why me? Kale asked quietly. Because you were the first to touch the pod. The first to see what we offered. The neural imprint is permanent. The being stood, moving with fluid grace. You now carry knowledge of 17 fallen civilizations. Their mistakes are yours to learn from. Kale looked at Voss, then back at the being. 7 days. 7 days until the council. 3 until their scout ships arrive to escort you. The being tilted its head, studying her. Use the time wisely. The decision you make will echo through millennia. The emergency council meeting started 6 hours after the being, who called itself Rennick, emerged from the pod. Kale sat at a table surrounded by faces she'd only seen in news feeds and official broadcasts. Fleet Admiral Torres, Minister of Colonial Affairs Ishida, and a dozen others whose titles blurred together in her exhausted mind. Let me be clear. Torres leaned forward, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. You're telling us that an alien just casually announced humanity is being drafted into a war we didn't know existed. Not drafted. Rennick stood by the window, apparently fascinated by the debris field outside. Invited. There is a difference. Semantics. Ishida's fingers drummed against the table. The outcome is the same. Fight or die. Fight, hide, or die, Rennick corrected. Some species have chosen isolation. They seal their systems, destroy their own jump gates, cut themselves off from galactic civilization entirely. They survive, after a fashion. Kale watched the officials process this, saw the calculations happening behind their eyes. Resources, military capacity, political capital. What are we fighting against? Rennick turned from the window. A collective consciousness that consumes biological distinctiveness. They do not conquer, they assimilate. Every species they encounter becomes part of their network, losing individual identity in service to the whole. Like a hive mind, Torres pulled up a holographic display, already running tactical scenarios. More complex. The consumed retain some memories, some skills, but they will become subordinate to the collective directive. Rennick moved closer to the table. They are efficient, relentless, and patient. The war has lasted 11,000 of your years because they do not need to win quickly. They simply need to outlast. And the Alliance? Kale asked. 743 species, from empires spanning thousands of systems to small civilizations like yours, barely reaching beyond their home star. Rennick produced a small device from somewhere in its clothing, projecting images into the air. Species of every imaginable form appeared and vanished in sequence, united not by ideology or culture, but by the simple desire to remain free. Minister Ishida studied the projection. What do they want from humanity? We've barely colonized a dozen planets. Our fleet couldn't stand against a single one of these larger empires. They want your perspective, your innovation. Rennick collapsed the projection. Young species often see solutions older ones miss. The weight of millennia creates blind spots. Where you want cannon fodder. Torres didn't bother hiding her skepticism. If we needed soldiers, we would conscript from the KRYLL. One of their warriors equals 10 of yours in combat capability. Rennick showed no offense at the accusation. We need your creativity, your chaos. Humans are unpredictable, and predictability has nearly cost us this war. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Kale felt the weight of those 17 dead civilizations in her mind, could almost hear their ghostly voices warning her of mistakes they'd made. What happened to them? She asked quietly. The 17 species who refused or chose wrong. Rennick's expression shifted to something that might have been sorrow. 4 joined the collective willingly, believing they could change it from within. They were wrong. 6 chose isolation and have not been heard from in centuries. We believe most are extinct, their systems dark and lifeless. 7 joined the alliance too late, bringing too few resources. They exist as refugees, their homeworlds consumed, their cultures reduced to scattered remnants aboard alliance ships. And if we join the alliance early? Torres was already thinking tactically. What support would we receive? Technology transfers, military advisors, access to trade networks spanning the galaxy. Rennick began counting on fingers that had one too many joints. Protection of alliance fleets, shared intelligence on enemy movements, medical advances that would extend your lifespans by centuries. In exchange for your commitment, your resources, your people. Rennick met Torres gaze steadily. The alliance will not defend those who do not defend themselves. You would be expected to contribute ships, personnel, and supplies to the war effort. Ishida laughed bitterly. We're already stretched thin. Food shortages, refugee crises, separatist movements in the outer colonies. You're asking us to take on a war we can't afford. You're already in the war, Rennick said flatly. You simply don't know it yet. The Meridian was not destroyed by a reactor malfunction or a meteor strike. It was a probe assault, testing your defenses and response times. The room erupted in questions and accusations. Kale felt her hands grip the table edge as the revelation crashed over her. 300 people dead, not in an accident, but as an experiment. Silence. Torres's voice cut through the chaos. Rennick, you're telling us the collective already knows about us. For approximately 90 of your days, they have been observing, analyzing, determining if you are worth assimilating or if you pose too little threat to bother with. Rennick's voice remained calm. The Meridian attack was the first stage of assessment. More will come. How long until a full invasion? Kale heard herself ask. Unknown. The collective operates on timescales biological minds struggle to comprehend. It could be months. It could be decades. But it will come. Rennick turned back to the window. Your species has attracted their attention. That cannot be undone. Torres stood abruptly. I'm calling an emergency session of the Colonial Parliament. This is beyond military authority. You have 3 days, Rennick reminded them. The escort ships will arrive whether you have reached a decision or not. As the officials filed out, already on communications devices and pulling up charts, Kale remained seated. The weight of 17 civilizations' worth of memories pressed against her thoughts, showing her what happened when species hesitated, when they chose wrong, when they trusted the wrong allies. Why can I remember their languages? She looked up at Rennick. I can read scripts I've never seen before. I know the chemical composition of atmospheres on planets I've never heard of. The neural imprint is thorough. You carry their knowledge now, their cultural context. Rennick sat down across from her. It is a burden. I am sorry it fell to you. Could anyone else have touched the pod? Yes, but you were first. The imprint bonds to the initial contact. Something in Rennick's tone suggested this wasn't entirely chance. You chose this spot deliberately. Near my station. I chose coordinates that analysis suggested would lead to this outcome. Yes. Rennick didn't deny it. Of the 47 humans in range, you had the highest probability of making effective use of the knowledge. That's not much better than random chance. In matters of galactic importance, we take what advantages we can find. The news broke 6 hours before Kale wanted it to. Some junior officer with more ambition than sense leaked partial details to a colonial network journalist, and within minutes the feed channels exploded with speculation, panic, and conspiracy theories. By the time official statements could be prepared, half the station believed they were being invaded, and the other half thought it was government propaganda to justify increased military spending. Kale watched the chaos unfold from her quarters, nursing terrible coffee and trying to organize the jumbled memories in her head. The 17 fallen species had names now, histories, cultural practices that felt as familiar as her own childhood. The Varanthi, who had loved mathematics so much they incorporated equations into religious ceremony. The Shorvith, who communicated through color changes in their skin. The Tekkan, whose society had been matriarchal for so long they had no male pronouns in their language. All gone. All consumed or scattered or extinct. Her door chime sounded. Dr. Chun entered without waiting for permission, carrying a medical scanner and looking determined. I need to examine you again. The preliminary scans showed neurological changes that shouldn't be possible. Chin set up her equipment with practiced efficiency. Your brain is forming new neural pathways at an accelerated rate. It's like watching someone learn a language, except it's happening in hours instead of years. It's the imprint. Kale submitted to the scans. Watching readouts, she barely understood scroll across Chin's display. Rennick said it was permanent and evolving. Your hippocampus is restructuring itself to accommodate additional memory storage. If you were anyone else, I'd say this would cause severe cognitive damage. But somehow your brain is adapting. Chun frowned at the data. Does it hurt? It feels like remembering dreams from someone else's life. Sometimes I forget which memories are mine. Kale closed her eyes, sorting through images. Did I study art history at the academy, or was that a Varanthi scholar 3,000 years ago? Both, actually. You took an elective course your second year. Chun put down her scanner. Kale, this is beyond anything medical science has encountered. You're carrying the cultural knowledge of 17 extinct species in your head. That's not just data, it's cognitive load. How are you functioning? Because I have to. Kale opened her eyes. 3 days until the escort ships arrive. 7 until the council. I'm the only human who knows what we're walking into. The station shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring to life. Emergency lighting kicked on as the main power grid fluctuated. Chun grabbed the table as another tremor ran through the deck plating. This is not a drill. All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels approaching from Vector 7 Mark III. The announcement system crackled with static. Military response teams activate immediately. Kale was moving before Chun could protest, racing toward the command center. The corridors filled with personnel, some heading for defensive positions, others securing critical systems. She burst into command to find Torres and Voss already coordinating responses. Status, Kale demanded. 6 unidentified ships dropped out of nowhere. No jump signatures, no warning. They're just sitting there 2,000 kilometers out. Torres pulled up tactical displays. They're not responding to hails, and our weapons systems can't get a target lock. The targeting computers keep losing them even though we can see them visually. Kale studied the ships on screen. They looked organic, all smooth curves and pulsing lights. Familiar in a way that made her stomach drop. Rennick, I need you here now. The alien appeared from the side corridor, moving fast. It took one look at the display and went perfectly still. They were not expected for 3 days. Well, they're here now. Are those the escort ships? Torres kept her hand near the weapon's authorization controls. No, those are collective probe vessels. Rennick's voice carried an emotion Kale hadn't heard before. Fear. They should not have been able to find you this quickly. The probe vessels began moving, not toward the station, but spreading out in a geometric pattern. Energy readings spiked as they activated scanning beams that swept across the station's hull. They're analyzing our defenses. Kale knew this somehow, remembered the same pattern from Shorvith space 70 years ago. Looking for weaknesses before the main force arrives. We need to fire now, before they complete their scan. Torres reached for the authorization pad. Negative. Rennick grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. Your weapons will not harm them, and attacking will only accelerate their timeline. They are categorizing you as a threat level. Violence confirms hostile intent, and doing nothing confirms we're easy prey. Torres pulled free. I won't let them probe my station like a laboratory specimen. Then you doom your species before the choice is even made. Rennick's tone went cold. The collective has destroyed civilizations for less provocation. If you fire on those probes, the invasion fleet will arrive within days instead of years. Kale felt memories surface, the Tekken admiral who had made the same choice. Fire first, establish dominance, show strength. His species lasted 3 months after that decision. Stand down, she heard herself say. Torres, I know how this plays out. I've seen it. Trust me. The admiral stared at her, reading something in Kale's expression. Finally, she stepped back from the weapons console. Fleet, maintain defensive positions but hold fire. EVPs, halt fire. The probe vessels completed their pattern, energy readings reaching peaks that made the sensor scream warnings. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, they vanished. No jump flash, no displacement, just gone. The command center released a collective breath. Torres checked her displays, confirming the vessels were truly gone. What did they learn? Everything. Rennick sagged slightly, the fear replaced by resignation. Population centers, industrial capacity, military strength, technological level. They now have a complete profile of your species. And? Kale asked, though part of her already knew the answer from 17 dead civilizations' memories. They will return. Not with probes next time. Rennick turned to face the assembled officers. You have hours, not days. The escort ships will arrive within the next solar rotation, and if you are not ready to depart, they will leave without you. The council cannot wait. One person can't speak for all of humanity. Ishida had joined them, looking shaken. We need time for proper diplomatic protocols, legislative approval, constitutional review. You need to survive. Rennick's patience was wearing thin. The collective does not care about your protocols. They have already decided you are worth studying. Do you understand what that means? Not worth assimilating immediately, but worth dissecting to understand what makes you different. They will take samples, cities, perhaps entire colonies. They will analyze you like insects under glass. Then we fight. Torres's jaw set in determination. We've faced extinction before. Humanity doesn't surrender. The Varanthi said the same thing. Kale spoke quietly, but every eye turned to her. They were brilliant warriors, tactically superior to any species the collective had encountered before. They won the first 10 engagements, even pushed the collective back from 3 systems. Then what happened? Someone asked. The collective learned, adapted, analyzed their tactics, and developed counters. By the 20th engagement, the Varanthi were losing. By the 50th, they were extinct. Fighting alone isn't enough. It's never been enough. The station's communication system activated with an incoming transmission. The screen filled with static, then clear to show something that made everyone in the room step back. The face on the screen wasn't really a face. It shifted constantly, features rearranging themselves as if the transmission couldn't decide on a single form. Eyes multiplied and vanished, mouths formed and dissolved, the whole image existing in a state of perpetual transformation. When it spoke, the voice came from 1,000 throats at once. We are the unity. We have observed humanity. You are incomplete. We offer completion. Torres found her voice first. This channel is encrypted military frequency. How did you access it? Encryption is irrelevant. Your mathematical patterns are simple. We understand them completely. The shifting face almost seemed to smile. We understand you completely. 2 billion individuals across 13 colonies, 700 distinct languages, 12,000 religious denominations. You are chaos pretending to be order. Kale felt the memories stirring, warning her. This was how it started with the Shorvith. Pleasant words, reasonable offers. The Unity had learned that direct threats pushed species toward the Alliance, so they adapted their approach. We don't want completion. We're fine as we are. Ishida stepped forward, diplomatic instincts taking over despite the situation. You are divided, inefficient. You war among yourselves over resources while the galaxy offers abundance. Join unity. End conflict. End suffering. Become part of something greater. The image stabilized slightly into something almost human. We do not force. We invite. Experience our perspective. Make an informed choice. That's not how your species operates. Rennick moved into view of the transmission. You assimilate by force. The invitation is a fiction. Rennick of the Alliance. Identification confirmed. Your species resists completion out of attachment to individual suffering. You prefer loneliness to connection. The Unity's voice held no malice, just statement of fact. Your alliance is fear wearing the mask of cooperation. And your collective is tyranny wearing the mask of unity, Rennick countered. The Unity ignored this, focusing back on the humans. We present an opportunity. Send one representative to experience Unity consciousness for one solar cycle. If they choose to leave afterward, they may do so freely. We will even share technological gifts as compensation for their time. Absolutely not. Torres moved between the screen and the others. We're not handing over anyone to be assimilated. Not assimilated. Temporarily connected. A trial period. The Unity's features settled into something resembling patience. The Alliance offers empty promises of protection. We offer proof. Direct experience of what we can provide. Knowledge. Understanding. An end to uncertainty. Kale felt something shift in the room. Several officers were listening now, actually considering the offer. The Unity was good at this, she realized. 17 civilizations worth of practice at finding the psychological pressure points. Show them, she said suddenly. Rennick, show them what happened to the 4 species who accepted this offer. Rennick hesitated, then produced its projection device. Images filled the command center. The Cortash, a proud species of warriors who believed they could infiltrate and sabotage the Unity from within. The transmission showed their last message, sent days after their representative connected to the Unity consciousness. They begged for others to join, their voices layered over each other, speaking in perfect unison about the beauty of connection. They chose freely, the Unity observed. We held no one against their will. You changed what they wanted. Kale stepped closer to the screen. That's not free choice. That's reprogramming. We opened their perspective. They saw clearly for the first time. This frightens you because you fear your own insignificance. The Unity's tone remained calm, almost gentle. One representative, one cycle. Prove the Alliance has not poisoned your perception of us. The room fell silent. Kale could see the calculation happening in multiple minds. One person for potential technological advancement. One soldier to understand the enemy. One volunteer to know, for certain, what the Unity really offered. The math seemed simple, the risk contained. I'll go. The words came from behind Kale. She turned to see Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a junior tactical officer she barely knew. If it means protecting humanity, I'll take that risk. Webb, stand down. Torres's command was immediate. With respect, Admiral, we need intelligence on the Unity. Real intelligence, not Alliance propaganda. Webb moved forward, his expression resolute. One cycle. I can maintain my identity that long. If what they say is true, we gain knowledge and technology. If it's a trap, we learn that too. Kale watched memories cascade through her mind. The Cortash commander who had made the same brave speech. The Ventari scout who volunteered, thinking her mental discipline would protect her. The Shorvith priest who believed his faith would serve as an anchor. All of them lost. All of them became part of the Unity. Their individuality dissolved into the collective consciousness. No. Kale moved between Webb and the screen. I've seen this before. 17 times before. It always ends the same way. You've seen Alliance propaganda, Webb countered. Memories implanted to ensure humanity falls in line. Lieutenant, you are out of line. Torres stepped forward. Am I? Or am I the only one thinking clearly? We can't make this decision based on one person's compromised memories. Webb addressed the room now, his voice carrying conviction. The Unity offers proof. The Alliance offers stories and warnings. Which would you trust? Kale felt the room shifting. Webb was articulating doubts others held, but wouldn't voice. The Unity had chosen its moment perfectly, right after the probe attack, when fear was high and trust in the Alliance was still theoretical. The Unity has practiced this speech for 11,000 years, Rennick said quietly. They know which words resonate with each species. They have consumed so many minds that they can predict your psychological responses with precision. So they understand us. Is that not preferable to aliens who arrived yesterday and demand we join their war? Webb looked at Torres. Admiral, I am formally volunteering. One cycle. Let me gather the intelligence we need. Torres looked torn. Military pragmatism warred with protective instinct. Kale could see the Admiral weighing options, calculating risks, trying to find the path that kept humanity safest. If you refuse, we understand. The Unity's voice had taken on an understanding tone. Fear is natural. We will depart and leave you to the Alliance's promises. But know that the option remains open. When the war comes to your systems, when your children fall to Alliance weapons or enemy fire, remember we offered another path. The war is already here because of you. Kale shot back. Those probe ships weren't scouts. They were the opening move. We observe all species at this stage of development. It is inevitable, not aggression. The Unity paused. Lieutenant Webb, if you wish to volunteer, we can facilitate transport immediately. No tricks. No deception. One cycle, then free return with full cognitive autonomy. Webb moved toward a communication console before Torres could stop him. I accept. How do we proceed? Marcus, don't. Kale grabbed his arm. I can show you what happened to the others. Let me share the memories. Please. You can't share what they implanted in you. I need to see for myself. Webb gently removed her hand. Admiral, I'm requesting permission to conduct a reconnaissance mission of strategic importance. Torres stood frozen, the weight of command crushing down on her. Say yes and potentially lose an officer to assimilation. Say no and reject intelligence that might save billions. The kind of choice that defined careers and haunted dreams. Permission denied. The voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Fleet Commander Zhang, Torres' superior, entering with a full security detail. Stand down, Lieutenant. This negotiation is over. The Unity's image flickered. A shame. The offer remains open. We are patient. We will wait for wiser minds to prevail. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Zhang wasted no time. Within minutes of the Unity's transmission ending, the command center had transformed into a strategic operations hub. Holographic displays showed fleet positions, colony defenses, and communication networks across human space. Officers scrambled to their stations as Zhang laid out the new reality. As of this moment, humanity is under Martial Coordination Protocol 7. Zhang's voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets through actual combat. All colonies will implement defensive measures. All civilian traffic is suspended until we understand the full scope of this situation. Commander, with respect, we're not at war. Ishida looked overwhelmed by the sudden military takeover. Not yet, but we're in a pre-war state, and I won't let bureaucratic hesitation cost us the first move. Zhang turned to Rennick. Your escort ships, when exactly will they arrive? Within 8 hours. They're already in system, approaching cautiously. Rennick pulled up navigation data. 3 heavy cruisers of Alliance make. They will expect Ambassador Kale and a small diplomatic party to be ready for immediate departure. Ambassador. Kale blinked. Nobody appointed me to anything. The neural imprint makes you humanity's de facto representative. You carry knowledge the Council will value, and your connection to the fallen species gives you credibility. Zhang studied her with calculating eyes. You're not my first choice, but you're what we have. Can you function in this capacity? I don't know. I'm a station operations manager. I organize shift schedules and maintenance rotations. Kale felt the weight of 17 civilizations pressing down. I'm not a diplomat. Neither were most of the species representatives who save their people. Rennick moved to her side. The Varanthi sent a botanist. The Shorvith sent a ship captain. The Tekkens sent a chef. What matters is not your training, but your ability to see patterns others miss. And if I fail, then humanity gets the same choice the other 17 faced, but with less understanding of the consequences. Zhang pulled up personnel files. You'll take a support team. military advisor, cultural specialist, technical expert. They'll handle the details while you manage the big picture. Torres cleared her throat. I'm going as the military advisor. Denied. I need you here coordinating the defense grid. Zhang scrolled through files. Commander Reeves will go. She has field experience and strategic training. A woman stepped forward from the security detail, her uniform marked with commendations from the outer colony conflicts. She looked capable and dangerous in equal measure. I can be ready in 2 hours. Cultural specialist will be Dr. Chun. Zhang didn't ask, simply assigned. Her analysis of the neural imprint makes her invaluable. Technical expert is Lieutenant Sarah Rue from engineering. She designed most of our current ship modifications. Chun and Rue appeared from different parts of the command center, both looking surprised but not arguing. Kale studied her suddenly assembled team, feeling inadequate to lead them. The escort ships will take you to Council Space, a journey of approximately 15 days at Alliance speeds. Rennick brought up star charts. During that time, you must prepare your case. The Council will ask 3 questions. First, what does humanity offer the Alliance that justifies the resource investment? Second, what guarantees can you provide that humanity will honor its commitments? Third, why should 700 species trust a civilization that barely controls its own system? Wonderful. No pressure. Kale rubbed her temples, fighting a headache that came from too many memories trying to surface at once. There's another complication. Rennick hesitated, which Kale had learned meant bad news was coming. The Unity will send a delegation to the Council as well. They have observer status, cannot vote, but can present counter-arguments to any species petitioning for membership. So we'll be arguing our case while the Unity tries to recruit us. Commander Reeves sounded more amused than concerned. Should make for an interesting trip. The station shuddered again, gentler this time. Long-range sensors showed 3 massive ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. They were beautiful in an alien way, all flowing lines and crystalline structures that caught starlight and refracted it into rainbow patterns. The escort arrives. Rennick watched the displays. Those are Korthari cruisers, a species that joined the Alliance 900 years ago. They will be professional but not warm. They have seen too many species fail to invest emotional energy in newcomers. How encouraging. Kale pulled up personnel records for her team. Try to learn who she'd be depending on for the next weeks. Reeves had combat decorations from the separatist conflicts. Chun had 3 doctorates and a reputation for solving impossible medical puzzles. Rue had rebuilt a colony ship's engines mid-flight using spare parts and mathematical improvisation. Better than nothing, she supposed. Zhang handed her a data tablet loaded with files. Everything we know about human military capacity, resource distribution, population centers, and technological development. It's incomplete and probably outdated in parts, but it's what we have. Memorize it. The Council will ask detailed questions. 8 hours isn't enough time. Then use the 15-day journey. The escort ships will have archive access. Learn everything you can about Alliance politics, past petitions, successful and failed applications. Zhang's expression softened slightly. Kale, I know this is overwhelming, but those 17 species in your head, they failed so you could learn from their mistakes. Use that advantage. The communication system activated with an incoming transmission, this time from the escort ships. The being on screen looked vaguely insectoid, with multiple eyes and mandibles that clicked softly as it spoke. The translation software rendered its words with mechanical precision. Station Command, this is Captain Vexthar of the Alliance Escort Fleet. We are prepared to receive Ambassador Kale and her delegation. Departure window is in 6 of your hours. We cannot delay beyond that timeline. Understood, Captain. We'll be ready. Zhang looked at Kale. Get your team assembled. Pack light. You won't need much where you're going. The next hours passed in a blur of preparation. Kale found herself in her quarters, staring at a nearly empty bag and wondering what you pack for a trip to decide your species' fate. Chen appeared in the doorway with medical supplies and a grim expression. I've been reviewing the neural imprint data. The integration is accelerating. Chen set down her equipment. Your brain is building new structures to accommodate all that information. It's fascinating from a research perspective, terrifying from a medical one. Will I still be me when it's done? Kale asked the question she'd been avoiding. I think so. The memories aren't overriding yours, they're adding to them. Like learning a new language doesn't erase your first one. Shouldn't pause. But there will be moments where you might not be sure which memories are native and which are implanted. Keep me informed if that happens. Reeve showed up next, already packed and looking ready for combat despite the diplomatic nature of the mission. I pulled files on the Council species. 700 is too many to memorize, but the major players number about 40. I got briefings on their cultures, military capabilities, and voting patterns. You've been preparing for this. Kale was surprised. Zhang sent me the files 6 hours ago with a note saying I might need them. She's thorough like that. Reeve sat down, her movements economical and precise. Look, I know you didn't ask for this position. Neither did I. But we're representing humanity now, so we better get comfortable working together fast. Rue arrived last, carrying enough technical equipment to stock a small laboratory. I'm bringing diagnostic tools for the escort ships. If we're trusting our lives to alien technology, I want to understand how it works. Also packed some human tech the Alliance might find interesting. Trade goods if negotiations go that direction. Smart thinking. Kale was starting to feel like maybe this team could actually function. The escort ships loomed in the docking bay like sleeping giants. Up close, their crystalline structures revealed impossible complexity, surfaces etched with patterns that might have been decorative or might have been functional components. Kale couldn't tell the difference, and that uncertainty made her nervous. Captain Vex Thar waited at the airlock, its insectoid features unreadable by human standards. 3 other beings stood behind it, representing species Kale recognized from the implanted memories. A Korthari engineer, a Valexian medical officer, and something that looked like living starlight compressed into vaguely humanoid form. Ambassador Kale, welcome aboard the Crystalline Dawn. Vexthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been a greeting. Your quarters are prepared. We depart immediately. The interior of the ship defied human architectural logic. Corridors curved in ways that suggested the designers didn't think in 3 dimensions. Gravity remained consistent, which Kale appreciated, but the walls displayed constantly shifting data streams in languages she couldn't read. Their quarters turned out to be a suite of connected rooms, each configured for different species' comfort requirements. The human section had recognizable furniture, though proportions were slightly off, as if designed for description rather than measurement. They tried, Chen observed, setting down her equipment in what appeared to be a medical bay. That's more than some species would do. Reeves was already examining the security features, noting emergency exits and defensive positions out of pure habit. Rue had disappeared into the engineering section, probably taking apart something she shouldn't touch. Kale sat in the common area, pulling up the data Zhang had provided. Population numbers, resource charts, technological assessments. The more she read, the clearer humanity's position became. They were insignificant by galactic standards. 13 colonies with a combined population that wouldn't fill a single city planet of some Alliance members. We have nothing they need, she said aloud. That's not entirely true. Rennick entered from a connecting corridor. On the escort ship, it seemed more relaxed, moving with the confidence of being among allies. You have perspective. Your species developed in isolation, without contact with galactic civilization. That means your solutions to problems don't follow the standard patterns. Give me an example. Rennick pulled up a holographic display showing a tactical scenario. 3 years ago, Alliance forces were pinned down in the Sexta system by Unity forces. Standard doctrine said retreat, regroup, attack from a different vector. A human advisor on fleet staff suggested they instead broadcast false communications, suggesting they developed a new weapon. The Unity forces withdrew to analyze the threat. The Alliance won the system without firing a shot. That's just lying. It's tactical deception, which Alliance doctrine doesn't emphasize. Most species view deception as dishonorable in warfare. Humans view it as practical. Rennick collapsed the display. That's what you bring. different ethics producing different solutions. The ship began to move, acceleration so smooth Kale barely felt it. Through the observation ports, the station shrank rapidly as they headed toward the system's edge and the jump point that would take them into Alliance space. How long until we reach the Council? Reeves joined them, having completed her security assessment. 15 days at maximum Alliance speed. We'll make several jumps, each taking us deeper into civilized space. Rennick brought up a star chart showing their route. You'll see things humans have never witnessed. Species older than your recorded history. Technologies that would seem like magic. Try not to be too overwhelmed. The first jump came 3 hours later. The ship's geometry seemed to fold in on itself, space twisting in ways that made Kale's eyes water. Then they were somewhere else entirely, surrounded by binary stars that painted the void in shades of orange and blue. Welcome to Alliance territory. Vexthar's voice came over the intercom. Navigation points from here are standardized. We'll make good time. Over the following days, Kale fell into a rhythm. Mornings studying council proceedings and Alliance law. Afternoons reviewing the memories of the 17 species, learning from their mistakes. Evenings discussing strategy with her team, preparing arguments and counter-arguments for every scenario they could imagine. Chun monitored her neural integration, reporting that the acceleration had stabilized. The new pathways were permanent now, the memories fully integrated. Kale could access them at will, though some still felt foreign, like remembering events that happened to someone else. You're carrying the weight of 17 species, Chun said during one examination. That would break most people. How are you managing? By remembering they failed, so I wouldn't have to. Kale stared at the readouts. Every mistake they made is a lesson I've learned. Every wrong choice is a path I won't take. On the 8th day, they encountered their first Unity ship. It appeared without warning, a massive construct that looked more grown than built, all organic curves and pulsing bioluminescence. The escort ships immediately went to alert status, weapons powering up. Do not engage. The Unity's transmission came through clearly. We are also traveling to the Council. There is room enough for all perspectives. The ships traveled in parallel for several hours, close enough that Kale could see movement through the Unity vessel's translucent hull. Beings that might have once been individual species, now merged into the collective consciousness, working in perfect synchronization. That could have been humanity, Reeves said quietly, watching the Unity ship. That still could be humanity if we make the wrong choice. Kale turned away from the viewport. On the 13th day, they reached the Council approach vector. What appeared in the observation ports made Kale's breath stop. A structure the size of a small moon hung in space, all spires and domes and connecting bridges. Thousands of ships moved around it in organized patterns, traffic from 700 species converging on this single point. The Eternal Conclave, Rennick said with something like reverence, built over 11,000 years ago. Every significant decision in the war has been made here. The escort ships began their final approach, joining the traffic pattern. Kale could see beings of every imaginable form moving through the transparent sections of the structure. Some walked, some flew, some seemed to exist in ways that defied physical description. Tomorrow you present humanity's case, Vexthar announced. Rest tonight. You will need all your clarity. That evening, Kale sat alone in her quarters, reviewing her notes one final time. The arguments were solid, the data compelling. But she knew from 17 species worth of memories that logic alone didn't sway councils. Emotion mattered. Connection mattered. The ability to make 700 different species believe humanity was worth saving. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Chun, Reeves, and Rue entered together. We've been talking, Reeves began. Tomorrow, whatever happens, we're with you. This isn't just your burden. We're a team, Chun added. You carry the memories, but we carry the present. Together, we speak for humanity. Rue held up a small device. Also, I may have figured out how to interface human computing with Alliance data networks. If we need to make a dramatic presentation, I can give us some visual flair. Kale felt something loosen in her chest. She wasn't alone. She had a team. Humanity had sent its best. "Thank you," she said simply. "All of you." The next morning, as their ship docked with the Eternal Conclave, Kale stood at the airlock with her team behind her. Through the opening, she could see the council chamber, vast beyond imagining, filled with representatives of 700 species. At the center, a platform waited for humanity's spokesperson. Rennick stood beside her. "Remember, you're not just speaking for the humans here now. You're speaking for all the humans who will ever live. Make them count." Kale took a breath, felt the weight of 17 failed civilizations and the hope of her own species, and stepped forward into the chamber. The council awaited. Humanity's fate hung in the balance, and she was ready to fight for every one of them. The chamber fell silent as she approached the platform. 700 pairs of eyes, in forms beyond counting, turned to witness what humanity would become.